Hey guys, welcome back to Soul Soil Wellness. Here we go already with the airplanes, but that's okay. We're going to get through this. Listen, in this video, I'm in the garden and I'm talking about 10 things that I learned from my container garden. Okay, so 10 things that hopefully, if you're a beginner gardener, you will not make these mistakes. All right, so let's just go ahead and get into it. All right, first of all, these are not in any particular order, but I do have them kind of all over. So bear with me if it takes me a minute. But the first thing that I want to talk about is seasons, and more specifically, temperatures. They do matter when it comes to planting. Okay. Um, Something that I learned the hard way is that you have to pay attention to your hardiness zone. So if you don't know, go to the USDA hardiness zone website, find out your hardiness zone, because this will help you to understand what crops you can plant in what season, depending on where you live. Okay, and it's not really the season; it's actually the temperature is really what it's kind of based on. Because spring here, I can plant some things now that people in other places can't quite plant yet, like some people up north, because the weather is still a little cooler there, especially at night. So temperatures matter. Okay. My grandparents used that same system. It was a farmer's almanac back then, and it still applies today. You have to get the best yield, to have a good chance of having a good harvest. You got to follow those rules and make sure that we're planning what can grow in that season. Not to say that you can't plant something in a different season and get a harvest, because you can, but it might be smaller. The fruit might be smaller, and the harvest in general just might be smaller. Okay, and I really want to at least try to set yourself up for success. But yep, that was just something that I learned. Something else, I have people behind me talking. Hopefully, my neighbors are out. Hopefully, you won't be able to hear it too much. But save your soil from season to season. If you have a container garden like I do, you know that soil costs a lot. And so, as you go from season to season, you don't have to get rid of your soil and get all new soil. Learn how to amend your soil. Learn about blood meal, bone meal, worm castings, compost, perlite, peat moss. Learn about these things and how you can just amend your soil to make it to replenish the nutrients in the soil so that it'll be good for your next round of crops, whatever that may be. Okay, so save some money. And while we're talking about saving, if you do buy seedlings, if you have to buy seedlings, make sure that you save all of those little plastic containers and things, because those come in handy for planting your own seedlings in. All right, so up next, underwatering is just as easy to do and just as damaging as overwatering. Um, and I was more concerned about giving my crops too much water last year, and I really didn't water enough. And what I mean by, and the reason why you want to water deep. First of all, let me say that. And what I mean by watering deep is pretty much water until you can see the water coming from the bottom of the container. Okay. If you're using containers, especially grow bags, but containers in general dry out a lot faster than in-ground gardens. So you want to water until the water runs off the bottom, because when you water deep, the roots grow the direction of that water, that moisture. So you want to water deep so that those roots really grow down deep, okay, and anchor that plant. Make a good anchor for it. Okay, let's wait for this plane to go ahead and do what it needs to do. All right, so the next thing I have, which I believe is number 4 maybe, is fertilize, but know what your specific crops need. Okay, I used to use fish emulsion for everything at every phase, from thriving fruit to something that is just starting to kind of come up. And one thing I had to learn is there that you need to research and know what are the specific needs of that crop, because so a plant that's already flowering and producing fruit doesn't need the same type of fertilizer as a seedling that is, um, as a new plant that's maybe past the seedling stage, but isn't quite at the stage of producing any flowers yet. So understand your crops and what its needs are. Understand the NPK, so that you'll know what type of fertilizer you need for that particular plant for the stage that it's in. And inspect what's not working. If you're doing something and it's not working, then change it up. Okay. But stay inspecting. Be an inspector. Okay. Okay. Next, learn how to companion plant to maximize your space, to maximize your harvest and the plants that you can grow. Um, this is something this year I decided to only invest in 30-gallon grow bags. I wanted the bigger grow bags based on what some of the things I learned last year. For instance, my sweet potatoes last year were really small in my 10-gallon bags. And so I wanted to make sure they had plenty of room, but I also wanted to make sure that everything had plenty of space to breathe. But even with that, I still was mindful to do my research and to find out what can be planted with what. For example, in this 30-gallon bag back here, there are, well, right now, one cucumber plant. There's going to be two cucumber plants back there, but there's also three okra plants in there with some marigolds. So those particular crops work together. You can't companion plant anything, and there are definitely some things that are better than others. For instance, with my tomatoes, I have marigolds, but I also have basil. Basil will help with the flavor and some insects, and the marigolds definitely help with insects. So you companion plant. Some of it is to get as many crops as you can in the space that you have. This is a small lot, less than 3,500 square feet. But you also companion plant to help with things like insects and things that can eat your crops up. All right. So yeah. And so next on the list, what do I have here? Oh, also when it comes to companion planting, know what size containers, if you're doing a container garden, know what size containers is best for what you're planting. Now, I'm a believer you can pretty much plant anything in almost any size container if you really wanted to, but to maximize your harvest, sometimes certain sizes are better. For example, with my brandywine tomato plant, my 30-gallon bag is a lot better than, say, a 10-gallon bag would be. Um, so know what the best size is for your plant to thrive. Okay. Um, Next up, what do we have? Da, 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 da. Oh, plan ahead. Okay. When you are planning season to season, I believe this is number 6. Plan ahead. Hold on. Joys of living in a flight path. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, plan ahead. It's important to plan ahead. It seems so basic and simple, but it really is important. And when I say plan, what I mean is there are some plants that are better started as seedlings inside, such as tomato plants, even pepper plants, I believe, are best started inside as seedlings. Um, but then there are other ones that are okay directly in the ground, cucumbers, um, of course, your root crops, those have to be, or definitely better, just directly sown into the soil. But number one, know that, because if you're planting, like for instance, if I would have waited until the beginning of spring to plant my spring garden, then there would be some things that I would be kind of behind on, especially the crops that need to be started or should have or could have been started inside. So planning ahead gives me the opportunity to know exactly when I need to plant what, where it needs to be planted, if it needs to be planted indoors and transplanted, when do I need to plant it indoors so that I can transplant it outside after the last frost date? So keep track of that. Um, but Also in planning, you need to think about the amount of sun that your crops need. There are some that need a lot of sun, 6 to 8 hours of sun. There are some that are best in more shaded areas. So when you're planning ahead, it also gives you a chance to think about your space, your yard space, and where the best place is for certain crops, which ones are the best as far as companion planting, which ones are going to work together, not just as far as space and root space, because it has to make sense together. You can't have two heavy feeders necessarily together in a small pot. Um, but it gives you a chance to think about, where do I need to put these so that they are getting the amount of sun or shade that they need. Okay. Um, but also, yeah, and like I said, you also will plan, what to plant, what can you put together, what type of flowers do you need, to keep pests away and things like that. All right, number 8, or I'm sorry, number 7, I believe it is have patience, because when we plant things, and I'm guilty of it too, you want the harvest immediately. I've been watching this brandywine tomato plant ever since I am transplanted it. I actually have 3 brandywines planted out here. 2 are in ground and 1 is behind me in um, this 30-gallon bag. And I just, you know, gardening is about patience, and it's good to learn patience and to be patient, because life challenges us to have to be patient sometimes. So take that as one of those lessons that you get to learn in the garden, is how to be someone who is better at being patient. There are so many lessons out here, um, once you get started, and just take advantage of it and enjoy the journey. But be patient, and you do the tending, and know that the harvest will come. All right, so next, keep track of everything. I've said it, but I feel like not enough emphasis is really put on it. It's good to keep track of what you're planting, where you're planting it, when it germinates, because number one, when things don't go as planned, it's good to kind of know. Number one, it's hard to know if you don't know when you planted something, because believe it or not, once you start planting several things, you'll you'll get to the point where you'll forget when you planted something, or you'll be not sure. So planting something, number one, you get to kind of keep track to know if a seed um, isn't if seeds are old, maybe, or if it's just not working, because sometimes you might plant something and it may not germinate for whatever reason. But also, like, I had planted 3 cucumber seedlings this year, and only one of them actually made it to be transplanted. And so I ended up planting two more very quickly, 2 more cucumber seedlings. And when I did, I was able to look back and see that when I planted the first seedlings, they germinated within 5 days. And so um, I got that heat mat going. Yeah, when I planted the second round, I got that heat mat going, tended to them really well, the best that I could. And the second round germinated within 3 days. And so it was good, to know that the first time it only took 5 days anyway, but also it's been helpful when I've had things that I've planted and I'm like, I don't see anything coming up yet. And I can go back and look to see, okay, I planted this 3 weeks ago, so these seeds must not be good, or something. But it's good to keep track of things. And I actually have a garden planner and tracker that I'm going to link below that you can use. It also has crops and where to plant them and when to plant them, but those are for zone 8A. So, but it's a good starting point for you. You can take it and you can make it your own, and switch things up so that it fits your zone. All right. But there's a tracker there also, so that you can, it's the exact same tracker that I use to put everything in whenever I plant something indoors or outdoors. I make note of what I'm planting, sometimes the variation, and also when it germinates. And there's also a place for notes about things like fertilizing and things like that. Speaking of fertilizer, going back to that, make sure that you're on a schedule for fertilizing. That keeps it a whole lot easier. Like, have a designated day that you fertilize so that it'll be easier to keep track of. Okay. Um, and so the next one, we said keep track of everything. All right. So da 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 da. I have everything on my list, but I don't have everything in any particular order. All right. So I believe the next one, um, which is a difficult one, uh, make peace with the frogs and the lizards. Ugh. And the bees. and the butterflies. Well, I don't know anyone who's really afraid of butterflies, and even the squirrels. Yes, and the birds. Ultimately, this is their home. Okay, and we're outside growing, building something in their home. Um, and even when it comes to those things that are just like ugh, like frogs and lizards, like they all have a place in the garden. And so, I never try to do things to drive them out, but I do things to reduce their presence. Which really the main thing that has worked for me is, for as far as the frogs and lizards, is just keeping the back porch light off at night. I've seen a huge reduction in them because there's not as many insects back here, fortunately. Um, oh gosh, that is a bee. I've been stung 3 times, so I am a little bit uh, on edge when a bee is flying around me. But anyway, um, but yeah, and even with the frogs and the lizards, the lizards, they keep insects out. Frogs do, and that's one reason why. Yeah, one reason why I keep looking here over my shoulder here is because on this pepper plant, there's actually a frog that's been on one of the leaves in there. And so I'm looking back, trying to play it natural, but really, I'm just like trying to keep my eye on that frog too. But anyway, yeah, but just know that they have a place in the garden and they do great things. They keep certain insects out. I was told that if you have lizards, that means you don't have snakes. So I'm okay with that. But just, and it's easier said than done, but make peace with all of the animals and reptiles and things that live out. But also, don't be afraid to protect your garden. Um, Squirrels and birds have really given me a hard time this year. And so I've had to take some measures, um, putting some sticks, bamboo. Actually, those are kebab sticks here in this basket because they would keep eating my okra seedlings. They did it when they were in ground, and they did it in here, just biting them off. And I understand they're good. I know that y'all want to eat my plants, but I need to protect them as well. And so I put those sticks there because that keeps them away because the squirrels can't figure out how to get into the bags like that when the sticks are around them like that, and the birds as well. So, and I have some shade cloths coming because that was an issue last year to protect the crops from the sun, because I know I did lose a few things last year because of the extreme heat. So that goes back to just inspecting, seeing what's not working, and not being afraid to change it. But the final thing, number 10, is quite simple. It is to be okay or be at peace with this being a learning process, because it is a learning process. There are going to be times when things don't go right. There are going to be things that are out of your control that don't go right, and there are going to be times that you mess everything up yourself. Okay, maybe you over fertilize something, you use the wrong type of fertilizer. Um, there, there's just this is a learning process for sure. So be okay with it being a learning process and enjoy the journey. Approach it like it's a learning process. Do your research, do your due diligence. Um, Only plant what you intend to eat. Okay, because there's enough that comes with having a garden. You don't want to have things growing that you're not even interested in consuming. Um, so, like I said, be okay with it being a learning process. Learn, inspect, change what's not working, and just enjoy the process. If something doesn't work, it's okay. My very first garden, it was like the summer in during the summer months. It was a whole flop. The only thing that I harvested that whole summer was herbs, which was okay. Um, but ever since then, I've made it my point to every season choose one thing that I really, really want to focus on and really want to get right. During the winter months, it was collard greens. And I grew collards, oh my God, beautifully. It was a dwarf variations, but I'm looking so forward to next year growing even more collards and bigger collards. For this spring slash summer, tomatoes are the thing. Last year, my tomato plant didn't even produce last year. And I knew it was because of the heat, which is why I ordered the shade covers this year. I'm protecting everything because I knew that that was an issue. So I learned. I didn't really get much last summer. I got like 2 okras on my okra plant last year, but that was because I decided to start it at the end of the summer when the season was about over, and I knew that it wasn't the right time. So it's a learning process. Go ahead, learn, make all the mistakes. Don't get frustrated when it doesn't go right. Don't give up. Just try it again. And eventually, hey, we'll all be pros. All right. Well, thank you for listening. I hope this video has been helpful. And yeah, don't forget to grab that garden guide, that garden tracker and planner down in the description area below. And hey, until next time, be blessed.